Welcome to the Strategic Tactical Group channel, where we're going to focus on safety, survival, preparedness, and efficiency. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, good morning everybody. It's Chris with Strategic again. Just going to take you for a little drive. Yeah, we're going back down the canyon. It's a little rainy, as you can see the snow's starting to melt and stuff. But I received an email or a message on YouTube, and I just thought I'd kind of explain it a little bit. I got a message from somebody that said, who are preppers and why do they prep? Well, preppers are everybody. And I don't mean that in the sense of every single person out there is a prepper. I mean that in the sense that everybody out there, regardless of what your career is, your denomination, your race, color, creed, any of that stuff, there's preppers. Why do people prep? I can't tell you why everybody preps. I can only tell you why I do. And honestly, it goes back to being in the Boy Scouts and doing a lot of our outdoor activities and camping and things like that, that I was worried that I'd be out with scouts and get lost or something and have to spend several hours to a day or so out there in the wilderness by myself before someone found me. And even at 8, 9, 10 years old, I still had kind of what I called my little emergency kit, that it was just a bunch of different things that I threw into an old military canteen case, just an OD green one. And when we do scout camps or hikes or anything like that, I always just threw it in my little backpack, just my simple little school backpack with me with my water and stuff. So that's where it started with me at a very young age. And then you grow up and you go to school and high school and you start finding your way down your career path and stuff. And I joined the military, and you'll find that a lot of preppers out there come from military or public safety EMS backgrounds. And my thought process on the reason why there's so many people that prep that come from those areas, those fields, is it's kind of taught to you, not directly, but in a roundabout way, that you need to be ready for any type of emergency situation that arises while you're at work, while you're running your beat, while you're deployed, anything like that. So it kind of started there a little bit. After I got out of the military, I was a civilian police officer for a while. And my prepping for that time when I was a civilian police officer just consisted of, I carried extra magazines in my car, in my police car, for both my handgun, my rifle, and then extra shotgun shells. And then I also threw in several bottles of water, as well as a couple of MREs, because there was one incident where I was out on Christmas Eve, got a report of some wires down up in the hills. I located the wires. Long story short, it turned out to be a pipe bomb that someone had put into a kind of an overflow drainage culvert. And throughout the investigation and the arrests, we found that they had actually made other bombs and detonated those. Well, that Christmas Eve, I spent 17 hours out of my 10-hour shift up on a mountainside with no food, no water. The rest of the department bought them McDonald's or something like that because they weren't up in the area where I was. I had to sit up there to keep everybody away from it, so that the explosive ordnance disposal guys could come in and detonate it. So after that, I thought, okay, no more. I'm not going to have to sit perimeter or something like that again and not have food and water to kind of make my shift go a little bit easier. So I threw a couple of MREs in and several bottles of water just in my trunk. Then I went down to New Orleans right after Hurricane Katrina. And that was an eye-opener. Now, granted, everybody that watches these, or at least watches all of them, know that I live in Utah. Okay, the predominant religion in this entire state is the LDS or Mormon religion. And it's really taught within their religion that you need to have your food storage and all this other stuff. So it's kind of in the community up here as a whole. Now, do I follow that belief? yes and no. I was born and baptized into the church, but I don't go, okay? I'm not a religious person. Spiritual, yes, I believe there's God. There's plans out there for everybody. We don't get to know them until it's time for it to happen. That's why people need to plan and prepare. Do I go to church? No, nope, I don't. I'm a big fan of, my church is what you see in front of you. Mountains, the outdoors, everything that God has created out there. So that's my version of church. Usually on the weekends, you'll find me out doing something outdoors, either up in the mountains, hiking, on my tractor, farming, all sorts of things. Okay, so that's my version of church. But when I was down in New Orleans, I kept looking around and I was just, I was in shock of what I was seeing, the number of people that were killed, the lack of preparations for each individual. And I kept asking myself, if we had something like that happen here in Utah, how would it affect us? And I kept coming back to the conclusion that in New Orleans, I didn't see that there was a sense of community. All right, and I was only down there for 7 months, so I don't have huge amounts of experience down there. I'm sure there is, I'm sure there's pockets of it, but I didn't see it in my time that I was down there. In Utah, there's a huge sense of community. So I would see Utah, especially with, like I said, the religion that teaches everybody to be prepared. I see that Utah would have a better outcome, a quicker recovery than what I saw in New Orleans and Mississippi. So that was my take on that. So when I got home, I thought, okay, I need to kind of step up my game a little bit. And at the time, prepper or prepping wasn't really a well-known phenomena or verbiage that was used out there. A lot of it was just survivalists. And when you say survivalists, you get these nut jobs of people that are building bunkers in the side of a mountain and living out there and living off of their food storage and everything else, and they're just waiting for Russia or North Korea or whoever our nemesis, arch nemesis is at the time, to launch the big nuclear weapon, okay? So when I got home, I started getting more food, more water, a little bit more ammunition, but not much, because when I went down to New Orleans, I took 4 different guns and a decent amount of ammo. When I got home, I still had that ammo, so I thought I was pretty okay. While I was down there, that's when I started Strategic Tactical Group. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. I started it in January of 2005. The hurricane rolled through, September of 2006, I think? 5, 6? I can't remember. Google it, you'll find out. But it wasn't there too long after that I started Strategic Tactical that the hurricane rolled through. So I was down there, and I had access to all this other equipment and gear at great prices. So I started selling the equipment to our guys that were down there, the guys that I was supervising for the security companies and stuff. Then I come home, I get my food storage and water storage and stuff like that going on, because like I said, prepping wasn't a big word. And I kind of stagnated there for a little bit. Then I met my wife that I've got now. And we had a little girl. A lot of you that are on my personal Facebook page, you'll see pictures of her. I mean, she's just our pride and joy. Don't get me wrong, I love my other 2 kids too. And I plan and prepare for them as well. But there was something that kind of triggered in me, and maybe it was how the economy was going or the world as a whole, that I was more in tune with it, that when this little girl was born, and I'm standing there holding her, I don't know, 20 minutes after she was born in the hospital, and I look down at her, and I see this perfect little child, and I ask myself, how would I ever explain to her that if something ever happened and she was hungry, why I couldn't feed her? And I'll tell you what, that lit a fire under my ass like no other. I kind of went a little nuts on the prepping, and that's when I first started recognizing the word prepper, prepping, stuff like that And I saw how much of it was going on out there. So I started jumping into it a lot more. I didn't want to have to look at my little perfect girl, my perfect little girl, and tell her she's going hungry because I didn't look ahead. I didn't plan for anything bad to happen, stuff like that. So our food storage increased, our water storage increased. We bought our property up in Idaho as a place where, one, we can go and just camp, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to do a lot of videos this summer up there, and I'll share it with you. We'll do some reviews. I'll kind of take you on a tour, show you what I've got going on, show you what my plans are for it, in my head anyways. And then we formed a mutual aid group. And as a lot of you know that watch these other videos and stuff, a mutual aid group are your friends that are doing the same thing for the same reasons. They want to be able to take care of their families. And my big thing is, I'm not one that wants to be dependent on anybody if I can at all be ready for anything at all. I just don't want to depend on anybody. I don't want to depend on the government. I saw that in New Orleans, that everybody absolutely hated FEMA because they weren't taking care of them enough. My thing with FEMA, regardless of the government organization that's out there, you find me one government organization that is capable of responding to that widespread of a disaster, covering that many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, affecting that many millions of people, and do it perfectly. Okay, that is not going to happen. Even the military cannot go in that short notice and be up and running. So I think, you know what, yeah, I'm sure FEMA had their shortfalls, but I think they did a pretty damn good job covering that big of an area. Now granted, I was down there with my own gear, my own supplies. I wasn't there when the hurricane was there. I was there a little bit after. Okay, but I don't want to be dependent on anybody. And that's one thing I think a lot of people don't understand is, yeah, have your 24-hour kits or 72-hour kits or 2-week kits or whatever it is that you want. That's going to help the responding agencies get more stuff established quicker because they're not having to try and help that many more people. So are we ready for everything? No, absolutely not. I don't think anybody can be ready for anything, for everything. Are we set for the vast majority of realistic things I can see happening? Yeah, I think we are. Now, I better knock on wood or something like that. The big threat here in our state of Utah, realistically, is our big earthquake. I think they say every 300 years, 250 years, something like that, we get an earthquake of 7.3 or greater. And I know we're like 75 years past due for that big earthquake. So that's the big push here in our state, is getting everybody ready for the big one, as everybody calls it, okay? Are there other things that can happen? Sure. We've had flooding up here, especially this year with as much snow as we've had. And right now at, 10 to 9 in the morning, it's 45 degrees. And as you can look around in the city, there's no snow. All the snow's already melted. And we had 2 feet, 3 weeks ago or so? So, I mean, it's melted very, very quick. I've got 2 brother-in-laws. One involved in law enforcement. Great guy. Love him, love his family. I mean, they're awesome. He's a prepper. I don't know if he uses that title, but like I said, he's in law enforcement. He's seen reality. He knows what reality is. So he's taken precautions to help his family. He's big into the outdoors, hunting, fishing, hiking, things like that. Hey, great. My other brother-in-law, not so much. I don't know, I think he runs a desk and does something on computers. Has no recollection that I'm aware of, excuse me, of prepping, okay? My family, my parents, my sister, my father retired from the military. He was also a civilian police officer. He was a volunteer firefighter for a small department up in northern part of the state. He preps, not nearly as much as I do, and I think part of that is he doesn't have to worry about his family now. We're all grown up. We're kind of responsible for ourselves. My middle sister, she was a firefighter. She has her bug out bag. She keeps food storage. She keeps her water storage. So she's got her firearm. She's prepping to a point. My youngest sister, she doesn't prep that I'm aware of. Would I like her to? Absolutely. She's got an awesome little boy. Does she need to do it to the extent that I do? Probably not. And I know she watches these videos, so there's her push. Food, water, entertainment things for your little boy, firearms, maybe not firearms, but at least something. And then my mom. My mom is an EMT advanced, or an advanced EMT, whatever they're calling them now, okay? She has her food storage. She has a certain amount of water storage. They have 72-hour kits hanging up in the garage. So that's where my family comes from. My wife's family, not so much. Her parents, I don't believe, really think anything bad like that's going to happen. I bought them like a little 72 emergency kit a couple of years for Christmas, and it just sits in a room. Okay, I don't think they've ever gone through it or anything like that. But I've tried to push them a little bit. I've mentioned things here and there. I know my wife has mentioned things here and there, but it doesn't seem like it's a priority for them. And like I said, maybe it's because, like my dad, they don't see anything bad happening, and they don't really have to worry about taking care of kids because all their children are grown up. So that's kind of my little thing on why I prep. I don't want to be dependent on the government. I want to be able to take care of my family as long as I possibly can without having to go to someone else for help. Have I gone overboard? If you ask my wife, absolutely. She has been so supportive, but she says I'm borderline on the nut job side versus being prepared. She said that when I brought home our Deuce and a half truck. And I know some of you have seen that in the videos in the background when I did the solar powered chicken water alarm clock heater thing. But it is absolutely an awesome truck. It's just fun. But my wife has even bought preps, things that we have up to our property right now. We've got a lot of solar power stuff, or solar panels and battery banks and things like that, that we know will be okay for a pretty decent time frame. We can keep all of our phones charged if the network's up, that we can use them. If not, we've got our ham radios that we have solar panels, so we can keep everything charged. We can keep our laptops charged. I can run a TV and DVD player for my little girl. What else? There's just a lot of things that I've done because I want to be able to take care of my family. Now, I'm going to do another video in, I don't know, the next week or so on where to start when you're starting to prep, okay? Because it can be very, very overwhelming. It really can. You do all your research, you've got all these gear reviews, you've got all these food reviews, you've got all these water filter reviews, you've got hundreds and hundreds of videos on bug out bags, get home bags, 72-hour kits, get out of Dodge kits. I mean, there's so much information out there, it can become very overwhelming. So I will do a video on where to start, and I want feedback from you guys. Maybe I should do like a 10-part series on starting here, progress to this step, progress to this step, progress to this step. And let me know what your thoughts on that. That's something I'm kind of considering. I'm off to my right, and you can't see it, but we've got a river that's flooding. It's going into a huge, huge field, and the field has a lot of river water in it right now from the hot temperatures and all the snow melt.